All right, welcome everyone. We are rejoining the February 27th Select Board meeting, now in session, currently in session. And we're going to resume with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by John.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We're now going to move to open forum, and we'll welcome anyone who'd like to speak to open forum, but also we will recognize speakers if you're wanting to address something that's coming up later in the agenda. So if you'd like, you can speak early, or you can speak later if you're here to address something specific tonight. And first up is to recognize Captain Donald Pick, who's retiring from the police department after 27 years of service. And Chief, if you would.
As always, I'd just like to thank the board for the opportunity to recognize the employees of the town when they have served the community for as long as Don Pick has. I think it's important for us to be able to have this forum, so I appreciate it. Don Pick has worked for the Westford Police Department for over 27 years. In 1996, he came on as an auxiliary part-time police officer and was finally hired full-time in 1998. And shortly thereafter, in 2001, he was promoted to sergeant. In 2006, he made lieutenant. One of the things that Don took great pride in is his ability to mentor young officers coming up. You could always see him taking somebody under the wing, going through a report or over a criminal application, or reviewing an arrest with the newer officers and making sure that they understood every nuance that went into this job. He took it incredibly seriously, and he wanted to really make each officer that was on his shift a better officer, and not just to make his job easier, but to make them more confident in their decisions, and really helped professionalize some of our patrol shifts, really kept them under his thumb, and I couldn't have asked for a better shift commander. In 2021, Don Pick was also promoted to our operations captain at the same time that I had made chief. He's faced some health challenges over the past several years, but when he wasn't dealing with his own health, he was in the police station, he was mentoring the youth, he was taking the shift commanders now under his wing to make sure that the product and the service that we were putting out to our community was couldn't be second guessed and was really second to none. So Don's professionalism and his mentorship really helped to develop a lot of what you see with our officers today. The funny thing is as I was going through Don's personnel file, you're looking for little bits and pieces, that maybe you can highlight. Don really did dedicate his development, his career to our patrol division. When you go through, there's not a ton of commendations, but what I found was 25, 35 different letters of thank you for just his response and how he handled an incident that members of our community had at their residences. So that kind of struck me. I haven't seen that type of response from the community. Occasionally an officer will get a letter, but for just the sheer number that he had in his file really struck me. So that just goes to show how much dedication, how much care he put into his position and what he was able to give back to the community. So I would just like to say that Captain Pick has a sincere appreciation and respect to the Westford Police Department and other law enforcement agencies around the Commonwealth. And we applaud him for his years of service and the accomplishments, and we wish him well on his retirement, which last day of work will be March 1st. Those members of the community that would like to come and show their appreciation, we're going to try and do something outside of the old fire station, hopefully with some heaters. We have the Emergency Operations Center where we normally would hold these things is being used for early voting. But anybody who wishes to stop by and wish Don good luck in his retirement, we welcome you. There should be some coffee and maybe some pizza if we're lucky. And then his official retirement date will be March 2nd on Saturday. So look forward to seeing anybody that wants to stop by.
What time?
1 o'clock, sorry.
Great, thank you, Chief, and thank you Captain Pick, for 27 years of service. We've had a number of, unfortunately, retirements, but real testaments to long-term service here in Westford, so we're very, very lucky and very grateful for that. So thank you, Chief. Also, we want to recognize tonight that Westford Academy was selected as New England's sole high school to perform Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the Broadway adaptation. Channel 5, I was at the school today, and Channel 5 was there filming. So you should be able to look on Channel 5 somewhere and see Westford Academy tonight on the news being celebrated for, I don't know how many, I think maybe just one high school per region was allowed to do this, so it's a very special privilege, and to Westford Academy's great credit that they were selected to do this. So, and we'll be able to see the performance later in the season. We'll make sure we let you know when. Anything from first the board and then the public? Anything from the board for open forum tonight? Anything else, Kristen?
I do have two things.
Yep.
Thank you. Just going off of what the chief said related to early voting going on in the police station EOC. If people would like to early vote for the presidential primary, they still have this Wednesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then a reminder that the election is officially on Tuesday, March 5th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. At your voting precinct at either Westford Academy or the Stony Brook Middle School. And then secondly, I'd just like to announce that the town of Westford has officially kicked off our strategic planning process. This morning and throughout today, select board members engage with the consultant, department heads engage with the consultant, and many of you are here as board and commission members who just got out of a really important session, so thank you for that. And just want to make it clear in the community that we currently do have a survey that is out there on social media and your web browsers, linked through Zen City. That's a company that we engaged with for this community survey. Not everyone will see the survey. It's a scientific survey that is linked towards demographics and age groups and things like that. But if you don't see it, please do not feel slighted. There'll be plenty of opportunities in the future to engage. We just wanted to do this scientific survey to get the data set off, and then in the next few months that all residents will be able to participate in the process. So thank you for the board for authorizing that with Ref Tellis, and I think we're off to a great start
Good.
moving forward.
Thank you. Anything from the public for open forum tonight? Okay, thank you much.
Say one thing.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
John.
Public Works Initiative, Jeff and Joe had their show over there at the senior center, and the seniors asked a lot of good questions about where we were going with this MBTA communities thing. And I think the overall reaction was very positive. So they got a lot of information, they asked some good questions, so I think it went very well.
Good, I actually heard some compliments from a resident this morning about that same event, so thank you to
Good.
Joe and Jeff and everyone else who made that an important event.
Good.
Okay. Next up is our 707 consent agenda item. We have one tonight, which is a banner.
We have a member of the public
Oh, I'm sorry.
with the raised hand. Dan, are you able to allow them to speak?
Yep.
It's Nate McKinnon.
Thank you, and Nate. Once you're live here, please feel free to speak.
Perfect. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Chairman?
Sounds great.
Great. Hi there, Nate McKinnon, 8 Sherlock Lane, Westford. Here tonight, just reiterating a message I've conveyed on previous select board meetings, which is to first thank you for your continued diligence and work on trying to get to a point where a budget proposal with a potential for a Proposition 2.5 override balances both the needs of the town from a services perspective, as well as understanding the ability to pay from taxpayers' perspective. And just want to thank you again for that, and strongly encourage the board to protect as many of our services in Westford and our positions as we've come to expect and rely upon in the values we have as a community moving forward, and to also be sure to while doing so, think about the ability of taxpayers to pay at the same time. We are fully prepared to help educate individuals about what the repercussions would be should a Proposition 2.5 override not succeed both at town meeting and the ballot boxes. We think that most people in town would be quite shocked to learn of the cuts in services, both in the schools, the fire department, the police department, and elsewhere across the community, and how devastating those would be. So we look forward to helping get out the word and educate voters to show up at town meeting and as well at the ballot box, hopefully, to support the needs of our community. And we just wanted to reiterate that message to you today, and thank you for your continued service.
Great. Thank you, Nate. Any other comments for public forum? Okay. And thanks for interrupting me. I'm glad that we recognized the member from the public. Next up is the consent agenda, which is a request, it's a banner request. The event is Learn to Row. The summer 2024 signups. The applicant is Westford Community Rowing, John Raychek. The dates are June 13th through June 24th of 2024, and the location is First Parish Church. Do I have a motion to approve?
So,
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Next up is our 710 item, which is a request from the Communications Advisory Committee to install an electric signboard on fire headquarters at 65 Boston Road, and we're welcoming Bob Jeffries and Bob Rafferty. Welcome.
Yeah, in our meetings, one of the things that's really come to the fore is we did a lot of informal talking with department heads about communication between departments and communication to the public. And we found that between departments was going quite well, but to the public was not going well, which has been part of our attempt to figure out how we fill in for the missing newspaper in town. And Bob Rafferty came up with a notion for one way we could start working on always informing people of important meetings and other things going on in the town. So I'll turn it over to Bob.
So, as Bob had said, we had done a survey amongst the town. It was a time when we were trying to increase attendance at town meeting, and we had found that it was the same 300 or so people that were engaged through the town website, etc., and we couldn't find a way to really expand that. What we stumbled upon was the idea when the 911 system was being upgraded in the town. We used a DPW signboard on Boston Road, and that really seemed to get, you know, the notice out to people that this was an event that was going to happen. And we thought that we have that fire station there, which is not in a historic district, and the idea was proposed to have a digital signboard that we could install outside of the fire station. We did some research through the Chelmsford Council on Aging, which owns a digital display board. We found out it would be for a single-sided board about $20,000. That would make a sign that would be 6 feet high, 9 feet wide. It would be installed on separate steel poles. The person that we talked to was Bill Barnett from Barlow Signs. And we realized that Boston Road area, pretty much everyone in town goes by it in their car, going to work, coming home from work, repetitively all day long. Additional ideas were the facts that each separate neighborhood in Westford has an original fire station such as this, and that if the sign were successful, we could install signs at other fire stations throughout the town, and it would keep the public informed of any happenings in the town, safety events in the town, town meeting, etc. The signs have Wi-Fi connectivity, so it wouldn't require anyone at the sign to make any changes to the content or display. It could be done remotely. We have several logins that we could use for it. There's a 10-year warranty and support. Wi-Fi connectivity is included in the price for 5 years. And that was about the ins and outs of it. One of the concerns is, should there be a safety event, especially with the railroad in the town? It kind of divides the town in half, and we had no other way of, other than reverse 911, etc., to get that message out to the people. So this was one of the ideas that we had.
Well, it's an exciting proposal and addresses an important need, which is public communication. I'm inclined to go to questions from the board. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm sure you thought of this, but just didn't mention it, but the thing about, especially the new center station, headquarters, if you put a 6-foot by 9-foot sign, what's it do for sight lines for the apparatus looking down Boston Road?
So we actually did prepare an artist's rendering. I don't know if you received it, because we did send a letter.
If it was in the letter. Then
Yeah. So as far as measurements, etc., I'm not sure.
But if we talk to the fire department and get
So
their,
we have not conferred with the fire department on this one. We did talk with Mike Wells he realized that we had the Wi-Fi and the power capability directly on that corner of the fire station as well, which is one of the reasons that we considered the site.
Other,
I
John
have
and
a
then
couple
Chris?
of questions. One of them's on the location, the other one's on timing.
Okay.
It appears to me that's on the left side of the road, and you're coming into town, and that's right after you've merged in that high-speed merge area that we've got there.
Right.
And I'd be concerned about getting the driver's attention as you're going down and headed into town. Do you think that, thought about that might be a distraction, somebody trying to wire the sign and still deal with the traffic?
I am no expert on that. It possibly could be, but I mean, the
Yeah,
same as.
I think it's a great idea. I'm just concerned about the location, the actual location of it, and whether or not it affects drivers or not.
So I believe that the planning department and perhaps the planning board may have to review this based upon
Okay.
location, utilities, if the sign changes over a period of time in accordance with our sign bylaw. So I think this is a concept that we're reviewing now, but there most likely there'll be a lot more design and review.
Yeah, the timing, of course, we're gonna be redoing Boston Road here
Right.
in the not too distant future, so my concern there was the timing and location. Okay.
I think we would have preferred the other side of the road, but we don't own, in fact, we're taking property on that side.
Yeah, I think they'd be receptive to doing that.
Yeah. But if you drive by Neshoba Tech, they have a sign out there, and I don't notice people
Yeah.
terribly distracted. And the idea is to put up, it's like town meeting such and such time, it's not a whole menu board
Yeah.
of.
In big letters, okay, so.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, so, gentlemen, I love this idea. I think communication is one of the biggest challenges that we face as a community. So I applaud the efforts to try and tackle that, and, you know, any other great ideas you can come up with, please bring them forward. I would love to see this even expanded. So I like the idea of that potential location. I know there are some challenges that I think we have to work through. As far as other areas of town, would you potentially consider maybe at the mouth of Farmers Way is up on Route 40 there? Because that's another, you know, widely traveled corridor. See a lot of people going through that space. You know, to your point about if the trains derail and we split the community in half, that's another good location to get the north of town, you know, informed. So I would encourage you to explore that as a possible location.
Okay.
Maybe there's some, you know, challenges there from a Wi-Fi connectivity, power, whatever, but I love the idea. I'd like to see it continue to move forward. So thank you.
Maybe there's a question for Kristen. So this is, I think, at least sounds like a number of us would be interested in seeing some next step here. So do we bring Mike in, or do we bring the facilities or planning? How would we develop this idea further?
Yeah, I think there's a few different departments that would have to be involved in concert with the Communication Advisory Committee, related to siting, to costs, to where those funds are going to come from, what the policy of the sign is. Is it just town messaging, or is it open for anyone, such as a Boy Scout troop or Girl Scout troop or whoever? So there's policies that also have to be created. So I think there's a multitude of matters. So if the select board says, yes, we're interested in concept, I would bring together a group to understand all aspects of it and then bring that back to you for consideration.
I thought that's a great concept. I might even think about if it's, you know, Roger Station compared to day school. It might be better on the day school side of the road, but I mean, in principle, it's a very good idea.
Any other responses, or do we feel comfortable asking Kristen to take this next step and bring it back to
Well,
us?
I say I'm comfortable with Chris taking the next step. It's just you brought up a good point about the message and the control or the standards for that. Because you can open Pandora's box on that with.
John, that's how we're going to solve our budget problems. We're going to sell
Yeah,
it for
okay, yeah,
advertising
okay.
space.
All right, good.
The bumpers to come
Rent the
in.
sign.
All right.
I'm sorry, Bob, do you have a comment?
We kind of thought of it similar to how the town common is,
Right.
Okay.
how signage gets there or doesn't get there, which puts it right back on you. So.
Okay, makes it a public forum,
Yep.
essentially.
Paul, do you have a comment?
I do. Paul Fossbender, 14 Texas Road. I was on the committee that drafted the current version of the sign bylaw and chaired the sign bylaw review committee that had a bunch of public hearings on these topics. And when I saw this, I haven't unfortunately had a chance to talk to Bob about it. During those meetings, it was very clear that the town was against the notion of having any direct LED lit signs, and that was in the bylaw previously. It was voted to keep it in the bylaw. My guess is that there are some issues in terms of signed bylaw agreement with this proposal. I talked briefly with Jeff today, and he couldn't be here tonight, but he said that there are some other issues that Kristen hasn't mentioned yet that need to be researched, including there are concerns that there were already non-conforming signs at Neshoba Tech at the time, and also that in general, what the town was trying to prohibit at that time was, the big billboard type LED signs that drugstores and things like that put up that show what's on sale, recent, new prices and stuff like that, and flash advertising messages. When the bylaw was researched, distraction was pointed out in the literature as being a big issue for drivers, and the choice was made in Westford to try as hard as we can to keep those big advertising signs out of town. And we felt that the best way to do it was to have a prohibition on all LED signs, because if you start allowing one, you end up down a slippery slope where pretty soon everybody gets what they want and so forth. So I think we really need to think long and hard about this before we charge ahead with this proposal.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And I think we are talking about using all the duly appointed mechanism to, for review and consideration, so. Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, one thing about Neshoba Tech, that they got that because they represent a series of towns and they are exempt from zoning. So they got around our sign bylaw.
Yeah, so well, great. Thank you for bringing this forward. I'm excited about it. I think the need for public communication has only gotten more urgent, so I think we want to investigate any good idea like this to see where it might fit, so
Sure.
thank you for
We
that.
can run that through and get that back to the board in due order.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else from the board or the public? We all set? Okay. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Guys.
Okay. We are now to our 7:20 item, which is an update from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee on Indigenous Peoples Day, and we welcome Joe Diamond. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I also, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ask you to welcome Anjali Rajput, who is the co-chair, along with Wendy Lloyd, who is a member.
Welcome, Anjali, and welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity tonight to address you. We are here today to offer our perspective on the ballot question Article 22 that's coming up for town meeting. And it's the article that has to do with Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday of October. We wanted to offer our perspective. We respect and understand and honor the perspective of the petitioners. But we have a suggestion that we hope this board and the petitioner will consider. We understand that the select board at its last meeting recommended Article 22. We didn't realize that it was on the agenda, my mistake, but now want to offer our perspective, and hopefully that's helpful. We appreciate this opportunity to recommend that you reconsider that position and that you further recommend that Indigenous Peoples Day be the sole holiday celebrated on the second Monday of October, and that October be declared Italian American Heritage Month. More on that a little later. In this way, we feel that we can honor both perspectives. We urge the Select Board to honor the will of the voters who approved the Indigenous Peoples Day ballot question in May of 2023. It came at the conclusion of a 3-year public process that involved town meeting, the Select Board, and the ballot question, which was voted on and then recounted. We took the charge almost 3 years ago of the town meeting very seriously. It involved also information sharing from and with Westford residents. Warrant Article 22 will have been available to the public for only 2 months and taken up in a different way than the Indigenous Peoples Day ballot question. And having Article 22 taken up at a town meeting is not a balanced consideration of an existing policy that was the product of 3 years of review and discussion. I'd like now, if it's okay, before questions, to turn things over to Angeli.
Actually, Wendy.
Wendy.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
turn it to
Wendy.
Wendy and then I will close it out.
Oh, thank you.
When I teach my students, I often think of an analogy to help my students understand why a concept might not make sense. So in order to sort of juxtapose a similar situation of Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day residing on the same day, the best analogy I could come up with is an honoring of Robert Oppenheimer, who's considered the father of the atomic bomb, on the same day that you might remember the victims of Hiroshima and the Nagasaki bombings in Japan. The juxtaposition of these two on the same day is not denigrating to either party, but the combination is in critical conflict with each other. So our proposal is to celebrate Italian American Heritage Culture Month for the entire month of June. That is what October. That is what a lot of the other towns are doing, and it was first celebrated in 1989 when George Bush and Congress and George Bush. In Massachusetts in 1999, Governor Solicitation signed into law establishing October as Italian American Heritage Month to be celebrated annually through the Commonwealth, and that was endorsed by the Order of Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. And on October 2020, Governor Charlie Baker celebrated the 21st anniversary of October as Italian American Heritage Month. I think I will pass it to Anjali.
Okay, thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
So basically, what we were the DEI committee, what we were charged a few years ago, as Joe indicated, we went through the process, right? We went through having the questions on the ballot, and the public actually voted for having the IPD as to be celebrated on the second Monday of October. Keeping that in mind, if we go back, that means we are reversing the whole process and the whole work that we actually went through for a very long time. And now we want to bring the community together. We want to contribute. The DEI committee wants to contribute to the communities, and we just want to extend our work in different forms and different ways, and we want to move ahead in the process. And in this process, if we think about based on the petition that we are looking at, we do respect the petitioner, we do respect their perspective, but if we do celebrate the Columbus Day and IPD Day on the same day, then basically, as Wendy indicated, it nullifies actually the whole process of why we are celebrating and what is the cause. So basically, coming back to IPD in general recognizes the painful histories and celebrates Indigenous communities, and what we are recommending is what Westford town decided a year ago, to just continue with that. Keeping that in mind, what our recommendation is, as Wendy and Joe indicated, that we celebrate October as the Italian American Heritage Month. So we come up with certain events where we celebrate that in the whole month, but we do still dedicate the second Monday in October as an Indigenous Peoples Day. That is my closing. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Why don't we go to comments or
Actually-
questions from the board?
I'm kind of curious, is the proponent of the petition here? Because I'd like to hear his, before we deliberate, I want to hear, is this a compromise that's acceptable or not to the proponent? I think he's,
Is the proponent here?
Are you asking for the petitioner to?
sorry, yeah,
Petitioner?
yeah, yeah.
I believe he is here.
Yeah,
Would you like to come? Yeah, if you would please come up to the mic. And if you don't mind, just giving your name and address first, and then I think Scott had a question.
That's fine. Anthony DeLeo, Vos Road. First of all, I want to thank the board for approving our petition and allowing it to go on to the warrant. We appreciate the consideration that was given for that. It was our attempt to bridge the divide that was created with the decision to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. We respect the petition or the proposal by the DEI to recognize the month of October as Italian American Heritage Month and to provide some opportunity for celebration during that month. However, that does not bridge the divide that was created by replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. We live in a very intelligent community here in Westford, and if this is done to replace Columbus Day, it will be seen as an appeasement, and as such, it will only compound the divide that currently exists. So I have no problem with accepting the proposal to designate the month of October for Italian Americans. I have no problem with that, but it should not replace the idea that we reconsider Columbus Day and try to bridge the divide that was created with the decision that was made last year.
Okay, so in response to Scott's question, you don't find that an appropriate compromise?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just wanted to clarify that. That would have made life very easy if it was.
They're
but
two,
okay.
in my mind, they're two very separate things,
Okay.
because the divide was created, okay, and this doesn't solve that divide. As I said, I believe it compounds it.
I understand. I just want to make sure that we didn't have an agreement that we were getting in the way of. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you for now. So why don't we go first to the board, then we'll go to the public. If you've got any questions or clarifications, please do. And then after we've heard from everyone, we'll come back and decide as a board what to do.
Okay.
John?
Yeah, I acknowledge that, yeah, the election did approve this by a margin of 15, I think. So it was hardly a mandate, and it was advisory in nature. So that was the nature of the vote. So in your deliberations, I think in one of our meetings, it was suggested that you consider an alternative to Columbus Day to identify or to recognize or celebrate Indigenous people. And some of those ideas included things like Wounded Knee, Trail of Tears, something like a landing of the Pilgrims here in Massachusetts, because that's what really determined what happened to the Indigenous people or how things evolved over the time. And so my question would be, why did you pick the 12th to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day? What significantly happened in Massachusetts or in New England that it would cause you to celebrate the 12th of October as Indigenous Peoples Day?
We can, I can start if that's okay. First of all, I wanted to note that very pleased that Mr. DeLeo's here. We did actually have a conversation prior to tonight, and it was good to be able to talk about this with him. John, to address your question, and it came up when we first addressed the board, actually the first couple of times we addressed the board. Mm-hmm. And I guess there are a couple ways to look at it, and I think Wendy has a perspective on it too. It's been a trend, a public policy reality across the country in many states, including a couple in New England, as well as a growing number of cities and towns in Massachusetts. And along with that, there's a state a bill proposed into the legislature to do this. My understanding is that Columbus Day is chosen because it is significant and it is symbolic for that day to be changed to Indigenous Peoples Day because of the history of exploration and the result of that history and the role that he, among others,
Can you
played.
speak a little louder?
Yeah,
We
I'm having
can't
trouble
hear
too.
anything back here.
Certainly.
I'm having trouble
Okay.
too.
Yeah, so thank you for raising that, and unfortunately the acoustics of the room make it such that it's a little bit hard to hear. So thank you, Joe, for speaking up.
Absolutely.
If it's okay,
Do you want to
John,
take the mic?
no, I'm fine.
Okay. And in the scenario that I brought up, the J. Robert Oppenheimer was the father of the atomic bomb, and that was seen as the gateway to making the atomic bomb a possibility. As Columbus coming over, thinking that he was finding a new route to India, trade with India, and instead came across indigenous peoples of the Caribbean. That was a turning point for the indigenous people, and that is seen, that specific date, and replacing the hurts that that has caused the native and indigenous peoples is symbolic, and the two cannot coexist together.
Okay, I think I understand that answer. John, do you?
Yeah, I understand the answer, but
I guess my problem is Columbus Day was there first, so by your analogy, you kind of got it backwards, but.
But Columbus Day may be symbolic. We act like it's a cause and effect. One of the things that's kind of ironic is if somebody asks why are we celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day on the 12th of October, we say, well, that's because Columbus landed in Bahamas in 1492. And it has no reference to how we settled New England. It has no real relationship to what happened to the Wampanoag and the other tribes, indigenous peoples in this area. It's almost like we're using Columbus as a fall guy for the way that the indigenous peoples were treated subsequent to that in incidents that had really no relation to what Columbus did. There were so many explorers around. He's not the only one that was doing that. So I just found it kind of ironic that, you know, we want to celebrate. I have no problem with Indigenous Peoples Day. I'd love to have even a bigger celebration. I'd love to have it be even more symbolic of something that happened here, not something that happened in 1492 that, you know, opened the Western Hemisphere to exploration, but not necessarily the direct cause of it. So that's my concern with this. And just one more thing. I don't
Sure.
One more thing. The way the question was posed in the ballot was you had a kind of, I don't know what the kind of choice you have. It's either, you know, either or instead of both. And now we've got a measure here saying, well, let's make it both. And I don't know that I see that as being wrong, and I think it may be something that we might want to address.
Okay, so.
Okay, I'm
so,
done.
no, it's okay. I think I understand the comment. I think you asked a question. I think they answered the question. The question was, why is it the same day? I think they explained the rationale for why.
Okay.
I don't know if you have some response.
I just wanted to make an additional comment. So basically, when we say that the exploration happened in 1400, but we didn't start celebrating Columbus Day in 1400s. We started Columbus Day announced somewhere in like late 90s. And the reason, we have to look at the reasons, right? The reason that I'm reading through is it was done. It was a political decision because there were lynching of Italian people, not because we wanted to honor actually Columbus's exploration skills. We wanted to please the Italians, and Italians are a huge part of this community, and that is why we are trying to separate two. We are trying to separate Columbus from Italians. Italians contribute a lot to this community, and keeping that in mind, we are advising and we are recommending that we celebrate October as Italian Heritage Month versus actually just giving the whole credit of everything that Italians have done just to Columbus. So that's why the recommendation is.
Okay. Thank you, Anjali. And I think I saw Chris first. If you don't mind, I'll come back to you.
No, I was just gonna say, I have a suggestion. Go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so just one point. So in the petitioner's statement, I think you made reference to the fact that we bring or allow this article to come forward. We don't, right? It's a citizen's petition, so it's going on the warrant regardless of what we say. Right. So I just want to point that out for the public. Second, you know, appreciate all the work you guys have done. Obviously, as you pointed out, it's been a long time of effort on, you know, your behalf as volunteers for the community, so that's great, and this is a contentious issue. Just curious, did anybody think about, you're saying, you know, Columbus Day, Indigenous People Day, sharing the same day doesn't work, but would an Italian American Day / Indigenous People Day work any better for you all?
There is a day, I believe, in another town, in another month, that's,
There is a,
But to your opinions, that's objectionable as well, to celebrate Italian American heritage and Indigenous Peoples Day on the same day?
As I believe, the issue, what we were looking at is Columbus Day versus Indigenous Peoples Day. I think we will have to go back and think about, right? So
Right.
we
I
do
think
not
it's-
have an answer right now, but
yeah,
we'll have to come.
what we're doing is we're bringing the sort of the sense of the DEI committee to this, to this board, and this is the recommendation we made tonight, was what we talked through, and to your point, it's been a long process. We took the charge of the town meeting very seriously, and have had discussions with our committee, and want to make sure that we are in sync with the sense of that committee. So we do appreciate the idea, however, which we'll bring
Yeah.
back.
We will take it back to the committee.
I mean, you know, so just my closing remark is, I think, and I made this remark, you know, months ago when you guys came forward, is that I think there's an opportunity here to find a middle ground. So you've got, you know, 50%, let's just say, of Westford, who is coming forward and saying, hey, we don't want to get rid of Indigenous Peoples Day. We just want to bring back what we had before. So they're extending the olive branch, and I think it's somewhat beholden on us to try and meet them halfway, especially in this day and age where there's just not a lot of finding middle ground. So I applaud the petitioner and that side of the coin to try to make that happen. And I know it's difficult because we've had all these votes, and you know, people want to just let this go, and you guys put a lot of work, but if this allows some healing to occur, in my opinion, it's worthwhile to try and put forth a little bit more effort to try and bridge that ground.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, that is exactly the spirit in which we offer this recommendation.
Yeah.
That it's the sort of the sense of the DI committee that to suggest an entire month, the Italian American Heritage Month in Westford, like it is cross country, like it is Massachusetts, is a way of doing just what you're suggesting. So I just want you to know that we're mindful of that idea of bridging the gap.
So just so I understand, it sounds like there's a proposal there to maybe ask the petitioner and the DI committee
I think it's worth
to
exploring.
basically make another attempt to see if there is a mutually acceptable compromise. Is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, though, is that what you're
That
thinking?
was my suggestion.
Okay, just so we won't launch that, but I just want to make sure I understood your recommendation.
You
Okay.
know, I don't know what the petitioners would think about that idea. I think it would require some conversation, and you know, maybe you guys can have that conversation. Maybe you can amend something on the floor of town meeting. You know, I don't know. I'm just saying, to me, that seemed like a possible way of moving forward, because it sounds like your solution is not acceptable at this point. So is there something else we can do to you know?
Go
Let me just,
ahead.
our solution is something that I know that the petitioner has considered and does not agree with. It remains to be seen. Now, I'm not jumping past your suggestion.
Yep.
But it does remain to be seen what town meeting would say, first of all.
Of course.
And then the other point to make is that I think it is challenging to say that there is a divide across the town. I think that's challenging, given.
I'm just looking at the numbers, right? I mean, the votes have always been very closely 50-50. So that's how I'm
but it
basing
was
You're judging that.
11.8% that showed up to vote of the voters of the town. So
Absolutely.
So,
when
okay.
we're saying the town's divided, it's a small subset.
So fair point. So we're going to move back to the normal procedure in these meetings, if we can. So Scott.
I just want to get us back on topic. So, I mean, if this compromise doesn't work, we're back to square one, right? So we have a petition that will go to town meeting because it's a citizen's petition with the right number of signatures that have been certified by the town clerk.
Yep.
And the DI is not prepared to sign on to that. So I think our only task tonight, I mean, this is the will of town meeting, we're not going to settle this tonight with 5 people or 8 people or whatever it's going to be. It's going to be a town meeting. So to me, our only decision tonight is, do we reconsider our vote or not? And first, I would apologize, Joe, because we should have explicitly invited you 2 weeks ago. That's on us, and I'm vice chair. I'll take responsibility for that too. Because we should have had you here. This should have been a discussion 2 weeks ago, not tonight, but where we are.
We're glad to be here tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So given that, I guess the question is really, I think, what's the will of the board on reconsideration?
No, you're exactly right, and we'll definitely get there. I just want to make sure we've heard from everybody that has a question or a comment before we do. So, excellent point, though, Scott. That is what's before us. So,
I just have one more question. Okay.
well, let me, if we could have.
So, I do want to take issue with one thing that you said, John, earlier, which is you said that the vote by the town was advisory.
Yes.
Well, I don't consider a vote that's gone to a ballot as advisory from the town to us. I consider that a vote by the town as to what the town, the people who voted, I respect that, but what the people who voted, voted and what their decision was is binding on the town. It wasn't advisory. It's not up to us as 5 people on the select board to change that vote. If the town itself wants to change that vote, that's a different story, but I do not think that the 5 of us have the authority to change that vote. So I wanted to take issue with that, with what you said. Recognizing that the only thing before us tonight, as Scott said, is a motion to reconsider. I think that we focus on that. I am certainly willing and will move and make a motion to reconsider in light of what we have heard from all of the folks tonight. In light of, if your suggestion, Chris, is something that the DEI committee and the petitioner want to get together and discuss and come back to us, either they have reached an agreement or they haven't reached an agreement, I am perfectly willing and open to hearing that. So in connection with the motion to reconsider, which is all that's before us tonight, I'm perfectly willing to do that, and I'll make that motion.
Okay, and I will second that motion, and we'll move in then to discussion around the motion.
Well, in
Do you have something?
a normal events, to ask to reconsider it has to come from the winning side.
No.
For
No.
reconsider.
It does not.
No, it does not.
Okay.
It does not.
Well,
Not
okay.
in this case.
Then let's, I had one more question for them. And then
Okay, if you have a brief question for the good of
Yeah.
us understanding.
Yeah. In your package, you showed the proclamation in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on Italian American Month. That was by Governor Baker. Is there a current one?
I don't
I
believe so.
even heard that before.
I don't believe so. I think it was.
So there's not a current one like that. Okay. And just as a rebuttal, that vote was defined by the council as advisory. And at 15-vote margin, I made the point that it was not, overwhelming. So I didn't say anything about disregarding it, but I just wanted to consider it as it was.
Okay.
So okay.
So what's before us now is the motion that's been made and second to reconsider. We can be in discussion around that. When we take a vote of yes would be to basically
Reconsider.
move back to where we were. A vote of no would be to let the existing decision stand. So any comments or discussions around the motion to reconsider? Yes, Chris.
Would it be okay if we allowed them a little bit more time to work on this and come back for a reconsideration, maybe at the next meeting, once you've had, and I hate to ask you to do more work, but to maybe maybe converse a little bit more and see if you can reach that compromise, and then we reconsider based off of that.
I think at this point it's been made and seconded, so the person who made the motion would have to withdraw their motion in order to not take the vote, basically.
That's fine, just bring it up.
Okay.
I guess, so, I didn't really want to take position, not really want to take position on this 2 weeks ago, but the board was we do. And I will say tonight what I said then, that all we're doing is saying what 5 of us think. It's 5 votes out of how many show up at town meeting. So I'm not, we can reconsider if you want, but I mean, I think we're just gonna, recycle the fact that, yeah, you actually can have a vote. I agree with Andrea that the majority vote of a ballot to me is binding, even if it's advisory. And I did agree we should implement it, but, we do have a 21st Amendment and 18th Amendment to the Constitution because we changed our mind on the 18th and prohibition and put 21st to take it away. So you can revote things. That's a democratic thing to do. Just want to make it clear that we're not trying to undo democracy by having a second vote. I prefer we didn't. I prefer that DEI could focus on things other than Columbus Day, but that's where we are. So,
Mr. Chairman.
You'd like to respond, Jeff?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. And by the way, DEI is focused on many things.
Oh, no, I know.
So happy to come and give a report, perhaps an annual report. The point we made about having gone through a process over 3 years is that it was a thorough and different process, including the length of time. And that our point now is that while we absolutely understand that you can make adjustments, in the city, in this town, in the state, in the country, it seems like it's so different, a contracted, short process, that it seems out of balance. And so that's the point we make about that. But
I don't mean to imply that's one thing you work on, just but that seems like our dialogue ends up being on Columbus Day, and that's not what I really want our dialogue to be about.
I understand.
Yeah, I guess my position on this issue is I regret that we didn't have the input from our appointed committee who'd done an enormous amount of work to get their input before we had the discussion last time. And with the benefit of hindsight, we should have done that. And I think this is an appropriate step for us to take in this case. And at least I feel like, I've gotten some information tonight about this now that we have heard them, that I think it's worthy of reconsideration. So that's my feeling on this. Any other input or comments or questions before we go to a vote? Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. The motion is to reconsider. Chris?
I'm a no at this point. I still would like to hear some more work going forward in order for me to want to reconsider. At this point, I haven't heard anything compelling to make me want to reconsider my vote from last meeting.
Okay. Andrea?
Yes.
John?
Nay.
Scott?
Yeah, my vote last time was a personal vote. It was not really meant to be a recommendation of the town. I think, generally, if you ask the select board for opposition, you want something like zoning or budget or other town policies where we've done a lot of research and have spent the time to gain more knowledge perhaps than the average resident does. In this case, we're really looking at something as a matter of personal opinion. So my opinion hasn't changed any, so I would vote not to reconsider.
Okay, and my vote is yes. So we have 3 nays and 2 yeses on the motion to reconsider. So the motion to reconsider fails. Any other discussion on this topic? We thank you very much for coming here and sharing your opinion with us tonight. And Kristen, do you have a point?
In the correspondence that they sent, they were requesting that the select board potentially recognize October as Italian American Heritage Day. Would you like to address that at a future meeting? Take that under consideration.
I guess I would like to hear, yes, and I would like to hear that from the DEI committee again.
Okay, so we'll coordinate that with you.
Given the whole context
Okay.
of the situation, if that is still a recommendation they would make, we
In
would
fact,
certainly entertain it.
Like, I mean, if you propose that at town meeting, hear what town meeting thinks about that, for that matter.
So just for clarification, would be Italian American Month, right?
I think one of the proposals we heard in the
I think that was one of the
documentation was
proposals
that
that they
it could
brought
be that,
before,
and
yes.
yeah, I guess in the context of this whole situation, we'd like to give them a chance to think about this and see if this is an additional recommendation they'd like to make. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for your time and your consideration.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we are now at our 7:30 item, which is discussion on the fiscal '25 budget and override budget. So, briefly recapping, in our last discussion, we had given some advice to the budget planners, to Kristen and the school committee, around further reductions that we would like to make to the budget. Those reductions have been identified and are in the packet in terms of information. So our current standing fiscal '25 budget proposal that would accompany an override proposal is now settled, and those items are identified. And in the last meeting, we also discussed a series of different override proposals that would have different service reductions and different impact levels associated with each. The discussion had moved really considering sort of the lower two options that we had identified to that date, which were $7.6 million override and a $6 million override. Our discussion and some of the input we got from various parties was that we felt that the 6 went awfully far in terms of cuts, and we wanted to consider an option that would be at 6.8 being a number that preserved a significant number of student-facing and public safety-facing positions in the budget. And so that has been investigated in between our last meeting and now, and you have a sort of summary comparison document in your packet looking at those two options closely and sort of what trade-offs they contain. So with that, first I'll entertain any comments or questions from the board, and then anything that we have from the public as well.
I have a question.
Yep, John?
Well, in the $6.8 million override, we talk about, we need $4.2 million in fiscal year '25. And then only $400,000 in '26. And then we go on from there. My question revolves around what would happen? Is there a way to stage that so that we don't hit the taxpayer with $6.8 million right away, hit them with the $4.2 million, and then with the smaller requirement in the next fiscal year, then we could add that need on the tax base going forward, add it gradually, because that would save, say, the average taxpayer maybe a couple $100 the first year, and work it in that way instead of hitting them with that slug right away. I mean, we are in we do need the override if we're going to keep things going. I mean, we unfortunately have some situations where the only recourse, if we don't, is to cut employees, and those cuts are just, I think, untenable. So I think I like the 6.8, but I'd like to string it out if that's a possibility and doesn't hurt the balance.
So Dan, I don't
Can
know
we do that legally? Can we?
So I think there would be a way to do it in a way that would be very similar to the way we did the last override. And maybe Dan, I don't know if you can speak to sort of the differences between the 6.8 as represented, which would basically assess the full amount and then hold some of that for stabilization over the following 2 years, versus the idea of only assessing 4.2 in the first year and then the full 6.8 in the second year.
Sure, it might help to share the screen just so
That'd be
people at
great.
home
Please
can
do.
follow there.
Yeah.
Oops.
I'd like to get the same result. I want it to be a little easier.
If you go over to attendees and then make yourself the other tab, the left tab.
Panels, there we go. Just a moment here. Make this. Here we go. Okay, so here is the memo that was in the budget, and this is the scenario 1 table with the $6.8 million override. So we broke out the revenue up top to kind of show how the override and the override stabilization fund actually impact the budgets in the outlying years. So as John said, with the $6.8 million override, we only need 4.2 to balance FY25, and then the excess 2.6 million would go into an override stabilization fund. And this table here sort of shows how the balance will work going forward. So in FY26, we would only need 400,000, as John said, because we're accessing the other 2.6 million in levy capacity in FY26. So that's why the stabilization amount is lower. So we know FY26 is a problem budget year, and then as we get into FY27 and FY28, the expense increases start to level out a little bit. So in FY27, we're proposing allocating 1.1 million of the remaining 2.2 million, and in FY28, the last of the 1.1 million. So in addition to applying these funds here, we are proposing to reduce expenses as well. So In the financial model, in FY25, we did build in the 1.1 million plus in reductions in FY25, and that will carry out throughout the years. In FY26, to make this work, we'd have to reduce expenses by 700,000 or increase efficiencies, and then in FY27, it's about 1.1 million. And you can see how close we are to a balanced budget in each of those years with this scenario. So with just a $6.8 million figure here, we would lose this 2.6 million. So this $700,000 in cuts, we'd have to include this $400,000 offset. It'd be 1.1 million to the FY26 budget. In FY27, we had proposed 1.1 million in cuts, so we'd have to double that to 2.2 million based on the current projections. And again, we wouldn't have this 1.1 million in FY28, so it'd be a further $1.1 million decrease, so a total of 2.9 million in FY28. So it does have a significant impact on the outlying years, not having that override stabilization fund.
So another way to think about it is it actually ends up being worse, I think, than the 6 million plan because you don't have that stabilization money. So the idea of assessing the full amount in the first year and putting 2.6 in stabilization is that then you can smooth out the remaining years. If you don't have that stabilization fund, you're going to have to make all those cuts immediately in those years that follow. And so if you look at the $6 million plan, that in the first year would have 1.8 million in carry forward. So you'd have 1.8 in stabilization to move forward. That might actually, in terms of net positions, leave you better off than if you did the step in. If you do the step in, what you lose is the stabilization fund. And that ends up being pretty important if you're trying to bridge the gap and build time in to both find efficiency gains and also potentially secure additional revenue, let things like the MBTA project begin to bear fruit. So it would be a big impact difference to the taxpayer to not do that full assessment.
So you're saying that affects the levy limit?
It does. We only have one opportunity to raise that 6.8 million in FY25 on the recap. If we don't do it in 25, then we lose our ability to assess extra in outlying years because by FY26, we'll be at the levy limit already. So it's sort of a one-time opportunity to have that additional funding to get us through the couple of years here.
When we had the last override, it was 1.5 million, but we only, I think it was 1.5 million for the salary, the overrides back in 90.
It was 1.6.
1.6. And we assessed, $500,000 the first year, then it was $1 million the next, and then $1.5 million the year after that.
We did that and it mirrored the contract increases. So it was basically exactly matching the contract need. And so in that case, it made sense because once you built in the full levy amount, that was the end of the contract. That was going to carry forward. In this case, if you step in, essentially you lose the ability to capture that early money that you can use for stabilization. So that's the whole story basically, is that if you step in, you lose the money, your total collection in the 3-year time frame we're looking at actually ends up being less than you do on 6 if you capture that money. So it would have a big impact. Just
I don't want to beat this to death, but
short stories would have a big impact.
It's money. So going 4.2 million, and then we appropriate 400,000 the next year, and then $1.1 million the next year. That brings us up to where we would have been, 6.8 million, just spread over 3 years. I guess I'm just looking for a way to, because it's going to be an increase to the average taxpayer of about, $800?
We have 5 scenarios in the memo based upon.
Yeah, I understand that, but if none of them said he was just going to do 4.2 million, and that would give them a $200 break the first year. I'm just looking for some way of balancing that. That's a pretty heavy hit.
Right.
Yeah. I know we have to do it. There has to be some kind of override.
That's the trade-off, John. If you pull the total override size down, if you were willing to go ahead and assess it in the first year and use some for stabilization, you've got a lot more to work with to try to bridge the gap. If you're using a higher number, like we had earlier scenarios that had higher numbers, in that case, if you step in, you're not worse off because you're ultimately able to collect what you need in year 3 and 4 to bridge the gap. So it is a trade-off. If we want to limit the total impact on the taxpayer by moving the total override amount down, you're going to lose a lot of flexibility and drive a lot more cuts if you don't have money in the stabilization.
Well, I'm thinking about the total override will be 6.8. I just wondered if there's some way of phasing it in so that we could gradually ramp up.
Yeah, I totally understand your point. And the main difference is in that first year, if you do it in the way that Dan has in this memo, you've got some money that you can apply to stabilization for those 2 years that follow. And that gives you the time you need to find other savings and also gives time for the other revenue to mature.
I assume that money's drawing interest.
Yes, it'll be in a stabilization fund drawing interest. Yeah,
How much?
it depends. It's based on the
Depends
market.
on the market, right?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I was just looking away, coming to a good point.
Yeah, no, I understand the desire, and it's an attractive thing to do, but it does force this trade-off that I think would ultimately have a lot more impact than
Okay.
we're looking at here. Any other questions or comments, or do we feel like essentially this is what we discussed last time, and this just provides more detail to that? Yeah, Chris?
I just would want to call out, if you scroll up a little bit more, Dan,
Yep.
that even with what we're proposing here, there are staff cuts. Sorry, I guess you would go down. So I just want to think you have that, is it on? Yeah, so the numbers that we're expecting in terms of maybe job losses, even with this scenario, are listed here in this chart. I just want to make sure people are aware.
Yes.
Yep, thank you. And could we just, for comparison, show the $6 million impact, the $6 million override impact in terms
Sure.
of lost jobs?
In this scenario, we're talking about 25 jobs or a $1.8 million increase. That's assuming 70,000 per job. That's in FY '28, and comparing it to not have to the $6 million override, we're talking about close to 53 jobs or a $3.7 million increase over those.
And by increase, you mean reduction?
I mean reduction. Excuse me. Thank you.
An
I know the
increase
difference.
in the
Thank you.
reduction.
Right, increase the reduction.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, let me look to see if there's any comments or questions from the public. Yep, Tom?
Tom Flam, 18 Poly Road, a member of FinCom, speaking as a private resident. I'm concerned, as John pointed out, with the stabilization fund. I think this is a big ask regardless. I support the override. I just worry that it's going to put that many more voters in the no and put us, it's just a risk that we need to identify, that, you know, if we push the limit too far, we end up in the no override. So I just want to make sure we're aware of that.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Okay.
So I asked a question, Dan, so in the memo, it said between 6 million override versus 6.8.
Mm.
The difference in cost was $90 for the average home. Is that of the entire, is it per year? Is it, looks like that's total, or is that?
For the first year, it's $90 difference, yeah.
Okay, so, and if you have a home more like 500, this would be proportionate, right? So,
It'd be more like 65-ish, I'd say. $70, somewhere around there.
I mean, the challenge for me is looking at the homeowners on the margin, right? So, on the one hand, $65 doesn't sound like much, but if you don't have it, you don't have it. On the other hand, there's also the very same people in many cases that benefit most from having police officers and fire department paramedics and interventionists in our schools. I mean, those same individuals need a lot of the services that are funded here. So I'm just working through that checklist in my head as to what I can live with.
Yeah, that was compelling to me in looking at these plans too, that between the two plans, to preserve 25 positions facing students and facing the public, 65 or 90, depending on your home value, is a lot to ask, but that to me seems like a reasonable, that sort of passed the neighbor test when I walked up and down the street and asked them about that difference.
One thing I also observe is, if you weren't listening carefully to Will, our assessor, last time, we mentioned the CPA exemption. That is an option in town, and looking at these sheets, we see the CPA at 200 $250. I would say if you're in that qualification range, applying for that CPA exemption is more than the override could be. So by all means, if you might be qualifying, make sure you do the paperwork and talk to the assessor and social worker.
And I think we have had comments that people wished that the pathway to access the relief that there is was more clear. We communicated more clearly, so I hope we can take that on as an action item. I know that people in the town are working hard. It is posted in a place people can find it, but I think we could advertise more than we are.
One other question for Dan. I know we discussed Slider at the last meeting. You weren't sure how much of that fund we use every year. Did you have a chance to research that at all?
Yeah, it's increased. It's been in effect for 2 years, so it's around 18,000 in the first year and 26,000 in the second year. So there's definitely room for growth. So in the legislation that just went before the October town meeting, it increased the house value that qualifies. So hopefully we capture, 12 to 15 more people was Will's estimate with that. So, but we're not near the levy capacity. It's around 200,000 that could be utilized. But I think more word of mouth has to get out there on that fund as well and have people.
Well, yeah, because that's 12 is not that many, but it's something. And if we consider, maybe we do the offline, maybe do some math and say, okay, if we have 200,000, we're only spending 80. What is that break-even point to get more people to qualify? Because that's a big deal, or can be.
Yeah, I'd like to spend more time, maybe not right now, but I would like to spend more time on how we can get these programs out in front of people, because the fact that people aren't accessing the existing availability suggests to me that we're not advertising well enough.
Yep. So one of the first qualifications for the town program is that they have to qualify for circuit breaker first. So they have to go through that process, but people can reach out to assessors or COA. They can help you with that process too. So for those who are interested, just call town hall. We'll put you in touch with the correct person.
So maybe in part of our communication, we can make sure we're including kind of a streamlined way to get people help with that. Okay. If there's no other communication on this, either with the board or with the public, then I think we're ready to consider a motion to recommend. I guess if anyone's ready to make the motion, we can make a motion to recommend the override as.
I'll make that motion. I'll make the motion that we recommend an override of $6.8 million.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? I'm sorry, was that an aye? John?
Yeah, I guess aye.
Okay. Okay, so it's 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Anything else that we need to do on that topic tonight, Kristen?
No, I just want to let members of the public know that we are launching additional information, most likely tomorrow, if not tomorrow by the end of the week, related to the specific $6.8 million, allowing people to comment and provide feedback. The town cannot poll residents of are you in favor, are you not in favor, so we recommend that you go to town meeting and you vote at the ballot on May 7th. But there will be increased communication to residents to get the word out of what this means and why the board has decided to move in this direction.
And there's a budget information session on the 4th.
There is a budget information session at Millennium on March 4th at 7 p.m. I know that also dovetails at the same time as the planning board's public hearing on MBTA and floodplain. So apologize for that, but we're running out of dates to get the word out in advance of town meeting. But WestfordCAT will be taping that.
Okay, so the planning board meeting is here.
Is here, correct.
Okay. And the information sessions at Millennium.
Correct.
And that is also able to be attended by virtual means?
It is hybrid as well, yes.
Can I just say one thing before
Yes,
we leave
please.
this? So, I just want to say one thing to the community in general. The select board, the school committee, the FinCom, all the folks at Town Hall, I think everybody knows, we have worked really, really hard on this for the last 6 months on this budget. And, we all understand, the impact that it's going to have on our residents. Over the last couple of weeks, I don't know if the school committee and the FinCom has received communications, but certainly the members of the board have received communications from the community, both in favor of the, asking us to support an override, and also, some very, clear and heartfelt communications from people who are asking us to consider the impact on them, and, that they may not be able to afford the override. And I want people to know, I mean, I think I speak for everybody in this board. We read your communications, we listen to you, and we hear you. It's been a very difficult process, and it's been a very difficult decision for all of us who've been involved. But we've all tried to take into all of your considerations and comments and make the best decision that we can for the town. And now it's up to the residents of the town to make the final decision.
And very well said, and also in some of the communication, I think we will recap the history, a little bit of what we've done together, both in terms of identifying the gap, but then also we had an initial proposal which was much higher than the proposal we talked about tonight. We got a lot of excellent input from the Finance Committee. We've reduced our fiscal 25 budget guidance twice. I think we found a bunch of good opportunities. We're grateful for the suggestions and the input. And so there's been really a significant amount of motion because we've heard that people had a lot of concerns about ability to pay, and also because we found some, I think, really worthwhile opportunities to make some reductions now. So just, I guess, gratitude for everybody who has been part of this so far. And for those who have been following it, we have made a number of adjustments in a bunch of important areas through the course of this process, and we're grateful for all the input that helped us do that. Okay.
Can
Yeah,
I
please.
just talk to you, maybe tomorrow morning we can talk about how to communicate the various options for relief?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's not already, I know we have some communication planned that sort of highlights how we got here, highlights what this is. If we could reserve a section on that communication.
Yep.
For this specific.
Right. I've seen that PowerPoint slide. It is really, really busy. I'd like to condense that into I know it's complicated, but if we can make 3 bullet points that the average person who's not an accountant can understand, that would be, I think, good.
Yeah, simplify, and everywhere we go, we should include communication of what relief options are.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Our next topic is to discuss annual town meeting, which is coming up Saturday, March 23rd. No time at all, month from, less than a month from today. At 9 a.m., everyone should know it's at 9 a.m. So first up is to discuss the outreach and communication methods to inform residents on annual town meeting and the Proposition 2.5 override. So let's do that first, and then we'll move on to the discussion of the warrant articles.
Sure. I'm very sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, could you, if you could please come to the microphone, that'd be great, Joe.
Joe Diamond, representing the DEI Committee, 7 Trailside Way. Just for the sake of due diligence, Article 22 is on the list of the agenda. Will you be taking it up again?
So my intention on discussing it at the time we did was out of respect for your time and the fact that you're here.
Understood.
So I don't think that we'll have any further action on that tonight. But let me just scan my board to make sure I'm not doing something. My intention was to address it at that time and not to need to address it later. So I think that's where we are.
That's what we assumed. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you
Joe.
very much.
Now you can all go home. Which was really the real question.
Who's to stay for the fireworks?
Okay. Communication outreach.
Sure, thank you, and I'd like to direct people's attention of the members of the public. The town moderator has been keeping her webpage very much up to date. We are going to be modeling that through the town clerk's webpage and also the town meeting webpage. Also, a shameless plug is we are redesigning our town website right now. We know there are many places people can go to get their town meeting information. We're trying to be as consistent as possible this time through, but hope we have a better page in the future. But again, want to just reiterate that town meeting is on March 23rd, which is a Saturday at 9 a.m. We are starting check-in at 8 a.m. Check-in will actually occur in the Bell lobby rather than in the gymnasium. We will be filling the gymnasium first with the first 800 voters. And then once we reach 800, if we reach 800, those next group of people will be going in the PAC. We have tested the audiovisual enhancements, and there is clear communication between the gym and the PAC. You can see in there, you can hear in there in real time. That will be tested again a week before town meeting, but there is seamless communication. There will be a deputy moderator in the PAC as appointed by the town moderator. And she's here. I'm sorry, do you want to speak or? Okay, all right, I apologize. I should have deferred to you. Related to accessibility, we are providing parking spaces at Westford Academy. The entire front will be handicap accessible. That'll be marked by the police department. Parking, we know, was a challenge at the last town meeting. When the Westford Academy lot is near full, we are going to be putting out messaging via Facebook and our electronic message boards, guiding people to park at Christofoli and Robinson School. We have reserved 2 school buses and 2 COA vans that will loop between those 2 areas from 8:30 a.m. through 5 p.m. that evening. Also, I believe that the moderator is working with the Commission on Disability to help people with accessibility challenges come into the meeting, understand, be settled, come to check in. We also are providing free transportation if you need it from your home to town meeting. That is through the COA, and there's a sign up on our website, or you can call the COA to sign up. Please just make sure you call by March 20th, which is the Wednesday before. Also, we are providing free childcare on site as we have for the previous town meetings. There is a sign up on the website through Recreation, or you can call Recreation. Again, that is free. And we will actually have a table out front where parents will be able to drop their children off, and then they will be escorted safely to the ancillary gymnasium. And the moderator has set a time certain for the budget conversation. So the budget for the operating override budget will be set for 9 a.m. or shortly after a consent agenda item. And the MBTA communities and the other zoning matter will be right after lunch, which will be approximately 12:45 or slightly after, depending on how the meeting goes. So did I miss anything, Madam Moderator? Lunch, thank you, that is very important. Breakfast and lunch. So the school groups will be serving for sale coffee and donuts, I believe, in the Bell lobby upon arrival. And we are also working with the school department, their food service, to have pizza for lunch for sale in the cafeteria during the lunch hour. We would recommend people either bring their lunch or purchase the lunch on site if they don't want to move their parking space throughout the day. All set? Okay.
Kristen, what time does the remote parking loop, shuttle loop starts? I'm wondering if people who know they're going to be there early, who want to go and leave spaces closer in for people who are mobility challenged or late arrivals, what time does that start?
8:30 a.m.
Okay. Why don't we think about that? I'm just thinking, like, if the first shuttle is at 8, I'm wondering if there's an opportunity maybe to start it earlier, just for people that maybe are even taking part in providing services at the town meeting. So something to think
You
about.
can see with the vendors if they can help.
Any other questions? Yes, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to double check, since the chief's here, police presence on the roads to help guide traffic in addition to the message boards, right?
Correct.
So
Yes.
those will be out on, do you have a plan, like where you're going to stage officers? I mean.
Yes.
Okay. keep me in suspense.
How complex do you want it to be?
I don't know. I just want to make sure that we don't have a pile up of cars on the roads
Yeah,
getting into WA, and that's what happened last time. So I want to avoid that situation if we can.
Okay, so we're really trying to get the information out there early, and one of the reasons why we did select the Robinson School and Christofoli School is because it is the proximity, easy to get to, nice big loop for the transportation services. Unfortunately, as this event has grown in scope with what we're going to be discussing, we're probably going to have 8 officers working. So we will have to have people inside to maintain kind of decorum in there in both rooms. We'll have an event coordinator, which very likely will be Captain Brialt here overseeing everything, and then we will work all the entries and exits. Once the parking lot at the Westford Academy is closed, we will communicate with the town manager and town moderator to start the social media messaging as well as on the Westford Police Department page, and then start to direct individuals to the ancillary parking lots. So that would be the Robinson and the Christofoli.
That's my concern, Chief, is if we wait until it's full, that's like too late. Because now we have a queue of cars waiting to get in there. What are we going to tell them? Oh, how are we going to turn around and go to Robinson?
I'm more than happy to take suggestions. However,
my suggestion would be is if you're getting to 25% or fewer, I don't know, some percentage.
Yeah, we certainly will start to, because we'll be able to gauge how many vehicles are queued to park there, and then probably make a decision to close that lot earlier.
That would be, I think,
than having multiple cars driving around the back of the building. There is really no way to close it early, and then we are going to be struggling with personnel. I'm going to be, it's going to be a tough event for us to manage with, probably 8, maybe even 10 personnel to be able to direct traffic up Robinson Road, or if they go down country to Concord Road and then up Robinson Road to park at the Robinson School. So we will have enough people there for on-site and checking the parking areas. So, and then we also have to run the shift as well. So, as it is, I would imagine that we're going to be ordering in a significant amount of personnel, 5 or 6 officers. Giving up a Saturday in March sometimes is very difficult to get the officers to come in and do those things. So, hopefully I know that we will have enough personnel. It may not be what everybody really wants. I just don't know that I have enough personnel to address it. But it will be safe. We will be able to move traffic. We will have our radios. We will have area cars as well if we really need it. So,
and
I think
it will
we've
be
planned
daylight.
adequately.
We did have darkness at the last meeting. If there are able-bodied people who wish to park off-site and would like to use the trail, they may do that as well. There'll be officers, I believe, at certain points, perhaps along the trail as well. So I know that's not ideal, but it's just another option for residents if they wish.
While we still have the chief here, Kristen, I know sometimes people who come to town meeting have pop-up tables or information they're sharing or positions they'd like to advocate. I think that we've created a little bit more of guidance about where people should be.
Yes, so there is a map that the moderator had worked on with us, directing where people can go to hand out flyers or hold signs or collect signatures, and that's essentially at the corners of WA along the sidewalk there. And there is a smaller area. If you were to use the entrance in the center of the front of Westford Academy, there is an area of sidewalk that juts out that we're also discussing having some tables or suggesting people set their tables there if they want to be a little bit closer to the entryway. Just the main concern was the last special town meeting that we had, the amount of congestion to the entryway and the people that were trying to solicit or hand out pamphlets and information. We're going to keep the entryway clear, consistent with the way that we approach other elections, and that map will be available as well.
It's currently on the town meeting page for 2024, so
Thank
people
you.
can access it there.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
You have a comment? Question?
Chris Kuntz, Texas Road. I have 2 questions. One regarding the buses that will be going back and forth between the high school and the other schools. Can people, elderly people or people who get in trouble, can they leave any time that they need and get out of there and back to their car?
Yep, so there'll be a constant shuttle with the 4 vehicles, and 2 of them are COA vans, so they are handicap accessible.
Okay. And the other question was, I expect there will be quite a few out-of-towners coming to this meeting just to watch, to picket, whatever. And we've had excess crowds at previous town meetings too, and this has kind of run into a problem. Is there a way that we can put signs or something in the Westford Academy parking lot that the parking lot there is for Westford residents, Westford voters only, and direct the out-of-town people who would like to picket or be there or observe to park in the further away places?
We can discuss that with the moderator. We have not made a decision on that.
Okay. That would be, I think, I know I had encountered lots of people at the last town meeting who drove around and they just looked at things and they said, look, I can't go over to the school and park over there. I'm just leaving. And we lost a lot of voters who felt disenfranchised because they couldn't get to the school. I know there are handicap places marked, but if some people decide they want to picket and they arrive early, knowing that, people have been told to arrive early, if they take up all the parking places in Westford Academy and our own residents and voters have to park farther away, it's not going to be a good outcome.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll just add to that, we do have a room for non-residents and
But
non-voters.
that means you have to get into the high school.
After they've parked, but
After
thank you,
they
Chris.
park,
I
there
think we
will be a
understand.
room they will not be in the gymnasium or the PAC.
Okay, John.
I assume we have the room for the for town staff,
Yes.
same as usual, so there's 800 residents plus town staff.
Yes,
in there.
correct.
Any other questions about communication around the meeting itself? Okay.
Well,
I'm
I
sorry,
mean,
Christian.
about about communication, I do think we should discuss how are we communicating about town meeting and the budget override to the community at large. So I don't know if you have any proposals. I can throw out some suggestions. I don't know how you want to tackle, but that's what I was hoping to discuss under this agenda item to some degree. Is I don't feel like, despite our best efforts, that we have communicated to Westford residents at large about where we are with this budget discussion and the importance of town meeting. So how do we get that word out?
Yeah, so maybe Kristen, if you'd like to give a sketch of some of the communication we've got already, and then Chris, if you have any suggestions, and then we can see if we want to take this offline in sort of an email suggestion format, or.
Sure. So we do have the budget webpage right now that's constantly being updated. I know that that only reaches a certain amount of people who subscribe to our news flashes. We are creating a Zen City page that discusses the budget and town meeting. We will be going through our normal social media exercises, getting email blasts out. A town meeting postcard will be mailed to every resident, going in the mail on March 12th, I believe.
I believe that's right, yeah.
So I know that that's normal. People might just throw it away. They see it every day, but that is going to every resident.
So if I could ask you to pause, so on that, are we going to mention that there's a Prop 2.5 override being discussed, or is it just going to be very generic, hey, we have our annual town meeting?
Right now, it's planned to be generic.
Yeah.
We are gonna have a QR code to bring people to websites. I teeter upon, advocating for an override versus giving facts.
I don't know if we don't want to, I agree, we don't want to advocate, but I think we need to inform, right?
Correct, correct.
So I don't know whether it's just to say, hey, voters, a Prop 2.5 override is going to be discussed at
Yep.
town meeting. Leave it at that.
Yeah, we can say, key highlights of the town meeting warrant that are generally not on there.
Perfect.
Proposition 2.5 override, MBTA communities,
Yep.
Some others that are generally not on there. We can definitely highlight that.
Scan the QR code for more
Exactly.
information.
And I've been following Dunstable, Groton, Acton. They've been all putting social media out there, and we can do similar things that they are doing as well. Just the notion that Westford is not the only community doing this. And then there's one more piece of outreach that is escaping me that I know we have talked about. I don't,
Well,
John has
we can come back to that. And Madam Moderator, do you have a point?
Kristen, I just wanted to ask, did you say the postcard was going to be just a generic announcing the time, date, and place of town?
No, it has all of the warrant articles.
All the warrant
It's
articles.
their standard postcard.
I'm sorry.
No
I
change
didn't-
to that.
I didn't,
Sorry,
I missed
wasn't
that
clear.
then. Thanks, I just wanted to check.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we can explore with council to make sure we're communicating what's at stake to the degree we can without tipping over into an advocacy. Yep.
So what's the FinCom providing in this part? I mean, isn't that FinCom's responsibility to some
They have
degree?
a book that they're putting together.
But
But
it doesn't get mailed to all of the residents anymore.
Yeah,
So
it'll
maybe
be
it's-
available at town meeting, and it'll be available
Right.
through,
On the website.
on the website.
And I think it's.
It looks like
I think
Christina.
The library,
I
town
think the
clerk's office.
library and the town clerk's office also have
Christina?
copies.
Hi, Christina Green, Chair of the Finance Committee. So the book will be put together, it will be on the website. Printed copies will be available at the town hall, at the library, I forget where else we said,
Police station.
around town, police station, several places around town, at the town meeting itself. And it should also be on the postcard. There should be a QR code or a link to where it is on the website.
We should make sure that hard copies are at the senior center too.
That is another one, yes, thank you, the senior center.
I guess my concern is explaining the process, what's gonna happen, what we have on the warrant, and then what's gonna happen as it goes forward, the process.
Just the
Up to
process
and a half,
of the meeting itself.
Yeah, and then all of that, what the results, what happens if, you're gonna have a vote, Prop 2.5 override, then it goes to ballot, that sort of thing.
Right, so
If
further
you understand
explaining.
that.
So that's on the frequently asked questions on our budget
Okay.
website right now, but we can bring people to that
I
as
just
well.
wanna make sure, because there are a lot of people out there still scratching their heads on this.
Yep.
Are we gonna use the signboards? for
Yes.
this? So How many characters can they contain?
I don't know. I have a coordination meeting in a week and a half with the entire team for all of the aspects, so.
It would be nice to say that if we actually had the 2 time certains,
Yep.
if that would fit, because more people see those things than anything else I think in
Yep.
town.
Where are we planning on deploying those?
So my recollection is that one goes on Boston Road, one goes on Route 40, and one goes in the center.
Perfect. That's great. Okay.
And if you have any other suggestions on ways to publicize and communicate, you know, Kristen has a whole playbook of stuff we're doing. We're borrowing good ideas we've seen elsewhere. I know that the ballot committee and other people interested have another sort of whole set of strategies. But if you're on the board or in the public and have ideas for ways to share, please send them in to Kristen or send them to me. Kristen, do you have another question or comment?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it would be possible to do something like was done for the last town meeting when we had the gun issue. You know, like here's what a yes vote means, here's what a no vote means, and some of the key points. That might help in the case of this particular override. A lot of town residents, they know something's happening, they have no clue. Many don't. Some people think it's only going to be for 3 years. They've heard a lot of the discussions and they half understand them and they say, oh, well, we're talking about just fiscal year 25, 26, 27, and then it goes away. I've heard other people say they are equating it to kind of a debt exclusion, that after you have a certain number of years and it gets paid off, that's going away. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. And I've heard other people say, oh, that doesn't affect me because I pay my taxes and they're included with my mortgage and that's a fixed rate. So it's not going to affect me. I mean, there's a lot of really strange perceptions and miscommunications out there. And other people say, what are you talking about? What override? So it'd help. I mean, yes, it is an obligation of every citizen to look at all these reports and all the meetings and everything. But, you know, you open all these spreadsheets and a lot of people just, they can't understand it. And there needs to be something simple to explain, this is what the impact of this is. Whether you approve it, it'll be this impact. If you vote it down, it'll be this impact. And this is what it actually means.
Thank you. No, it's an excellent point. So I know that there are I've seen a number of drafts going around with, we're trying to make a simple communication that highlights these key points, but can't make it often enough. Our best efforts to make it simple sometimes don't hit the mark. Sometimes it's still too complicated and too dense.
And I'll just point out, I did mention the March 4th budget open forum, again at Millennium. We will be before the League of Women Voters on Thursday, March 14th, virtually as well at 7:30 p.m. to discuss all the warrant articles. So this will be included in that as well.
Okay, thank you. Very valuable input for us in thinking about communicating this complicated issue. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the reviewing the warrant articles. Okay.
We'll just note, we did vote on Article 5, accept town reports at the last meeting. I apologize, that's a duplication. So you do not need to take a position on Article 5, unless you wish to reconsider.
Okay, I think we're okay on that one. Great, should we just march through them, or is there anything to discuss? Dan, are you gonna take us through them in any detail, or?
Sure. See, Article 1 was the vote on the Prop 2.5 override that you just voted on, so.
Do you, for cleanliness, should we go ahead and vote on this again as Article 1, because it includes
Because this is specifically the fiscal 25 budget.
Both includes this, so.
So I'll move to recommend to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Article 2 is to establish an override stabilization fund.
I'll move to recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 3 is to fund the override stabilization fund, and currently in the motions, there's $2.6 million going into the fund.
I'll move to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Article 4 is to approve the fiscal year 2025 operating budget. This is the backup budget in case the override budget fails at the ballot. We still need a budget in place for July 1st. So I know the Finance Committee, we were talking to Christina Green about possibly making a recommendation at town meeting to help explain it. So if we,
I was going to say, I don't think we should take a position on this right now, and I think whatever happens at town meeting, then if we have to take a position, then we'll take a position at that point in time.
Right, it's confusing, it's confusing for the public. I do think So even if it passes at town meeting, I think the argument is, at the town meeting, we'll have to explain this and take a vote, so it's in place if it fails at the ballot.
Correct, right.
But the utility of us not taking a position now is, I think it just can be very confusing.
It will just make it more confusing than it already is.
Yeah, so we'll plan to take a position on that basically immediately before we vote it, or as close to the time we vote it as possible. Okay, thank you. We've already done 5, 6.
Great. 6 is to approve the fiscal year 2024 budget supplemental appropriations. There's basically $936 for the sealer awaits for this year to fulfill the contract amount, and our typical $400,000 for the snow and ice deficit.
I move to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Article 7 is our annual appropriation for perchlorate expenses for $110,000.
I have a question.
Yep, please.
So, are our expenses going up again for perchlorate?
They're slightly increasing because we are getting closer to closure, so there's additional testing requirements. We're doing a shutdown. I believe that the consultant was before your board, maybe back in October, to discuss that process. It was a very dry presentation. It was very long.
I'm not sure I was here for
You
that.
might not have been
I don't
here
think I
either.
was here.
So in order to do a testing process, we would be shutting down the plant and then doing additional testing, so that is the requirement for the additional funds.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So I'll move to recommend.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Article 8 is to approve capital appropriations. I did give a presentation on this at our February 5th budget hearing. Happy to answer any questions that we might have on any of the recommendations.
Any questions on that?
We discussed the third truck, so that's in then, right?
Third truck is in there, yes.
And move to recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 9 is to approve the construction of PFAS treatment plants for $24.5 million and to apply for state revolving loans, which are low interest to no interest.
And I do just want to let the board know, at a meeting in the very near future, the water commissioners, the water superintendent, and the DPW director will be before you to discuss the request that you had a few meetings back related to the long-term planning of our water system and the long-term planning of our rate structure.
Okay.
Do we have to approve this at this town meeting? Can we wait till special town meeting in October so we can hear the presentation from the, and what the whole big, what the big picture is and the plan is?
So I have Kyle Fox and Mark Warren on the line. If you could promote them to panelists. My understanding is that if we do not approve this at this town meeting, we may lose out on our potential SRF application funding.
Okay.
So we would have to have the appropriation in place, but I would like
Okay.
Kyle or Mark to correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep. Hi, Mark.
Great. So, yes, Kristen, you are correct. If we have a deadline for appropriation, and that's June 28th of 2024. So, to be eligible to apply for the SRF loan in the fall. So if we waited till the fall town meeting, it would be too late.
Okay, thank you. I'll move to recommend.
Yes.
It's a painful one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Dan. Next up is Community Preservation Committee recommendations.
That's correct. We have Marilyn here to
Welcome, Marilyn.
share.
I'll make it fast.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say, after being on this committee for 23 years, that our positions have never changed. And we don't spend money ahead of getting the money in the fall. So we spend money that we receive in the fall, and then after that, we spend the money. We also don't spend more money than we have. We entered this application process with $3,885,000 of available cash on hand. We received 12 applications, the most in all the years that I've been sitting on the board. The amount was $10,333,608. 2 applications were determined not to be CPA eligible projects, and they were dismissed. Another 2 projects were reduced by the applicants and revised. One project was withdrawn at this time, and another project will come back the following year at our suggestion. The total recommended projects paid with the cash in the CPA funds that we have was $3,481,608. So we have enough money without borrowing, without bonding, without doing anything to pay for the projects that we're recommending. Now, I don't want to go through them if you're familiar with them. If you want me to, I'll be happy to.
I think.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I think for the public.
The public, yeah,
Okay.
if you could.
Okay, I'll do it quickly, okay. $30,000 from the undesignated fund balance for the Westford Museum Handicapped Accessibility Plan located at 2 Boston Road and any other related costs. Currently, the museum has no handicap access to the second floor. It also means that bathrooms would be made accessible. This is a study to see how much it would cost. $190,000 from the undesignated fund balance for the Conservation Trust Fund for future open space land purchases, any other related costs. They've come back most every year. I believe the fund they have now is $1 million. $4,208 from the undesignated fund balance for the June Kennedy Oral Histories Digitalization Project and any other related costs. $60,000 from the undesignated fund balance for the supplemental funding for the O'Brien Farm Public Footbridge located at 18 Voss Road, Lot 2, and any other related costs. Construction costs are higher, and that's why the additional appropriation. $163,000 from the undesignated fund balance for the restoration of the Parish Center of the Arts Bell Tower, Bell Cradle, and Window Project located at 10 Lincoln Street, and any other related costs. This, of course, was our first building of government, and I don't know how many years old it is, but it has to be like 270 years old, something to that effect. $2,220,000 from the undesignated fund balance for the Stony Brook Track and Athletic Course construction project located at 9 Farmer Way, and any other related costs. We did have one piece removed from that we did not feel fit the qualifications for funding from us. $725,000 from the undesignated fund balance for the Navnasset Playground Project located at 99 Plain Road, and any other related costs. And lastly, $89,400 from the undesignated fund balance for comprehensive conditions assessment of the First Parish Church United project located at 48 Main Street. And that is total projects that we have.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions related to those?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Great, thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Next up, we have Article 11, authorized revolving funds. They're the same amounts from the previous year, the expenditure limits.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Next up, we have appropriate funds from our enterprise, other post-employment benefit stabilization fund to the water enterprise budget. This, again, is an article we have every year.
Move to approve or recommend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Articles 17 and 18, we would recommend that you hold your recommendation. The planning board plans to close the public hearing on Monday and then issue their report thereafter.
Okay, 19.
19 is solicitation and canvassing door-to-door bylaw. The chief is here for this.
And Chief, you spoke to this on an earlier time.
Yes, sir. Do I need to comment then?
Are there any questions? We did, just for the public, we did have a maybe just briefly what it is.
Yep. So essentially, the new solicitation and canvassing door-to-door bylaw would replace the current Chapter 157 of our current bylaws for transient merchants, which was voted in by annual town meeting in 1970. So it's time to be updated after 54 years. It is consistent with solicitation and canvassing bylaws in other communities. One of the main components is the updating of the fee that's collected. And it really is to establish the registration requirements as it states in the purpose, and protect citizens from the disruption of peaceful enjoyment of the residents I can go on along that. But essentially what it does is it specifies when you need a permit, who needs to get a permit, what information they have to provide, the process that they go through, the rules that they have to follow when they're within someone's home or approaching somebody's home, and it does not apply essentially to anyone that is not doing it for commercial purposes or professional means. So the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, Westford Pop Warner, all of those will still have the opportunity to go door to door for their light bulb sales, et cetera. And the registration fee and identification card, all the information that would be placed on that. There is a section for exemptions, and then again, it also goes into what the penalty and appeal method will be. Our previous solicitor bylaw, if somebody had a felony on the record, no matter how minor that felony would have been, and even if it's a significant period of time that has passed, the chief shall deny, the stipulation was that the chief shall deny the license, and then the board would be the arbiter of any appeal. So this allows for a little bit more flexibility and consideration before a denial based upon some of those factors. So it does spell those things out.
Great. Thanks, Chief. Any questions?
Move to recommend.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Chief. And you want to give us a thumbnail on the next one, too?
Yep. So under Article 20, again, this does go hand in hand with the solicitor bylaw. In order to really enhance the amount of public safety we can provide to our citizens before allowing people to go out in the public and have one-on-one interactions and applying for licenses and almost getting the kind of the blessing of the town to go out. We would like to be able to enhance our criminal background, and the only way for us to do that is through a civil fingerprinting bylaw to be adopted, which would still have to go in front of the Attorney General's office as well. But that would apply to, we're requesting it to apply to hawking, peddling, or door-to-door solicitors, which we just discussed, owner-operator of public conveyance, hackney drivers, so Uber, taxi, stuff like that, and then ice cream truck vendors. Anything that really has a one-on-one component with either children or vulnerable people or inviting somebody into their home. You really want to have confidence that the person that is permitted by the community and licensed by the community has undergone a proper background. And what this will allow us to do is to charge a $100 fee for one time for that license, that we will enter their fingerprints through our CGIS and FBI database, and we will get their criminal history back. This is the only way for us to be able to check somebody's criminal history outside the state of Massachusetts. So currently, we are authorized that we can query somebody, but we will not get somebody's criminal history if it's outside of our area. So if, particularly for, say, a solicitor or a taxi driver or ice cream truck vendor, if they have a significant felony on their record from outside of our state, like Colorado, which we had seen, this gives us the opportunity to actually gather all that information if the vendor doesn't disclose that. So we will be able to more rigorously investigate anybody that the town is authorizing to exercise these licenses within the community. There is a breakdown for the fee of $100 that will go for each of these licenses. The license will go for the specific time based on the type of license through the community. The solicitors, the recommendation would be for 180 days because it's basically gives them the full season to be able to go out, April to October or whatever. But $30 of that fee does go to the FBI and DC just to maintain their database, and the town would collect the additional fee for the service and processing.
Thank you.
Just because, would this apply to electricians, plumbers who go into your home, or just?
It would not. It would not. It was strictly for the licensing. I know I had a conversation with Ray Dick because originally one of the recommendations may have possibly been for food vendors, but you don't really have the one-on-one private interaction with a food vendor that you may have. The licensed, I think if anybody's doing business in this community, they have certain, their work is being inspected. A lot of people have the opportunity to investigate that type of service and confirm people's reputations through word of mouth or recommendation, Better Business Bureau. And again, so this allows us as a community to since we have so little interaction with some of these individuals, this gives us an ability to really kind of look into kind of a surface background, so we can tell that if they're a legitimate solicitor or licensee.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is our 850 item, old new business. Consider request from the Commission on Disability to approve Melanie Silverman to the PWD family member seat for a term expiring June 30, 2026, contingent upon town manager co-approval.
So,
Actually, you want to take us through these? Am I off base here?
Nope, you're fine. There's 3 requests from the Commission on Disabilities. One is to approve this member seat, and I know Scott's on the commission, so he might be better served than I to speak to
Actually,
this.
our vice chair is here. She can also speak, because I missed part of the meeting, and Catherine's probably better equipped to speak to all these.
Wendy was also chairing the meeting, so.
We got a
Got everybody.
full plate.
This is
Might
great.
help, Wendy, if you join me, because I had the glorious stomach flu that's doing the rounds at the moment.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yes, so we are asking for 2 things. We currently have 2 vacant seats on the Commission on Disability. One is for a person with a family member, and Melanie, whose application I think you have in your packet, is the parent of a child with a disability, and so we would look for her to take that seat. We currently have one then open position that we haven't been able to fill, and that seat is for specifically a person with a disability. What we have
a veteran, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we have found in recent months is, for a variety of reasons, we don't always make quorum, and because we need 4. So we have recently received 2 applications from 2 members of the community that I feel are very qualified to sit on the Commission on Disability, and they have extensive experience within the area of disabilities, and so therefore, in a spirit of collaboration and community and bringing in as many hands, we would look at increasing our membership by 2 in terms of alternate members, so that in the event of in a meeting we don't have, we're not able to make quorum, that if our other 2 alternate members are present, they can step in and the meeting can proceed and we can get business done.
Scott?
So, sorry. I'm not sure that's, so the problem with Disability Commission is it's approved by the Mass Legislature, not by the town. I think that they don't allow alternates, at least they did not used to allow alternates from the state. What we did was we created associate memberships.
So that's the word, yes.
So they're not strictly alternates, they're associate members. We've had that in the past. That way we've got people on deck who, if someone decides they want to resign or whatever reason, we've got a bench, but they also can help us out with any activities. So this associate, not alternate, would be what.
Yes, sorry, you're right.
And that associate, if they're filling in for a member with a family member with a disability, I think they have to be like for like.
Exactly, yeah, the rules are, you have to have X number of people with a disability, those who, either a caregiver or a parent, 1 public official, which is, I guess, me.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, of the 7, I think, 4 or 5 are defined, and then you've got a couple of residents at large.
I have it here, and it is 4 are persons with disability, 1 is a person with disability family member, 1 is a resident at large, and 1 is an elected or appointed official.
Okay, so thank you very much for detailing that. Let's see, can we consider the wording here with the amendment instead of alternate to be associate
Yep.
sufficient?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the 3 requests here as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I just put the town manager co-approval because it is a co-approval select board town manager. I just like to always just have a phone conversation or a one-on-one conversation with a member before I do the appointment, so that's why I was just wanted that language on there. Just would never want to appoint someone without me having a conversation.
Oh, and to be clear, we've got 2 associate seats with names on them.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, and that's basically your request or your preferred procedure is what we just approved.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
But the commission did talk to all 3 of these individuals,
Great.
so.
Okay.
Excellent.
Great. Any board reports or updates? Chris?
Just give a quick update on Park and Rec Commission met a while back, I think 3 weeks now. And one of the discussion items was a rate increase for the summer programming. So that was approved by the commission, but I just want to make you all aware if it was modest, than 10% or something like that. But, something that hopefully won't impact enrollment, but will bring us a little bit closer in line with some of the department's competitors. So.
And I should mention, just since it's a big part of our economic development, potential new revenue strategy, the Economic Development Committee is continuing to look for an appropriate consultant to help us detail out our business plan, sort of roadmap, goal set for the commercial district. And I guess the right way to say this is we'd hope to be further along than we are, and now we're sort of regrouping for.
So what happened?
Yep, so we've received 3 proposals. 2 proposals we feel that are worthy of interviews, so we're in the process of setting up those interviews with those consultants.
Okay, all right. You made it sound like it had fallen. There was nobody who was appropriate, Tom. That's why I asked.
No, we've got some people in the hopper, but we're still. It'd be good if we were already up and working on this, but we're still working on that.
Okay.
Okay.
You and I.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, a little bit misleading there on my part. Anything else, town reports? Okay. Kristen, town manager's report.
Great, thank you. The first is to authorize the town manager to sign a grant through the Mass Office of Grants and Research, Homeland Security Division, for a municipal local cybersecurity grant in the amount of $75,000. I've been working with Mike Wells on this grant. We are looking at every possible funding opportunity to make our systems more secure and go towards multi-factor authentication, which is going to be required by our insurance company. So we'd be looking for the board to authorize that application that's due next week.
Do you want to take that separately?
I would, because the other one is to accept a grant, so.
So I'll move to authorize our town manager to apply for the grant.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.
The next is to accept a grant. So the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security issued the town of Westford a grant for the automated external defibrillator equipment program in the amount of $1,702 as requested by the police department to purchase those defibrillators.
I'll move to accept.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, and then we'll move on to contracts and purchase orders. This is an annual, the Lowell Regional Transit Authority for renewal of their operating agreement for fiscal year '24 with the Westford Council on Aging in the amount of $107,713 as requested by the Council on Aging. And then 2 purchase orders, tri-sales for water meter radios and accessories for water meter replacement program and new installation, a little over $25,000, and mayor services for the replacement of the pump and well piping for the Coat Well in the amount of $14,460, both from the water department.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Move to waive reading of correspondence?
Oh, come on now. You sure you don't want to read it?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Westford. Have a good evening.